You're listening to the Beat Motel Zine podcast, and we need to warn you that we use words like shit, bollocks, scrotics, fuck, anarcho-syndicalist, and cunt. And we don't normally beat those words out, apart from the word cunt, because we're not total animals. Now, we know as well as you that your children can hear these words on any street in Britain, possibly any street anywhere in the world, but we also appreciate that you may not want to invite these words into your home if you have children or sensitive pets nearby whilst listening to this podcast. So listener discretion is advised. That being said, if your children aren't allergic to hearing words like fuck, shit, buttocks or hind penis, they might learn something from listening to this podcast, although probably not, because the quality of our educational content is quite poor. So there you go, fuckers, buckle in and let's get started. Hello, you're back with Beat Motel, the podcast about emotions. Hey Sam, you're back. Hello, how you doing?
Hello, it's very nice to see you. How are you?
It's lovely to see you. What have you got on your t-shirt?
Bloodbath.
Mm-hmm.
It is a rat eating the eyeball of a skull. I feel able to wear this because my son is desensitized to this sort of stuff. And it's too cold. It's too cold to walk around in a t-shirt in Finland, so no one else sees it anyway.
I'm kind of impressed you're in a t-shirt kind of indoors. It's down to 1 degree here in Ipswich, and I'm still wearing my pajamas, if I'm honest.
It's sunny though.
Oh, it's sunny, but it's not sunny enough to actually stay warm.
But I mean, it's sunny. We got back the other day, and it's just been grey. So that's fun.
Right, should we go for a riff of the week?
Yes, go for it.
I was your dirty boy, you're the new secret toy. Show me how they get your joy. Who stayed in trouble with you? Oh, don't you want some more? Come on, I think they're gone. Our party's coming on. You're either with me or don't. Bring it in. Would you loosen up? Would you hug me? Bring it in. I think they wanna take a picture.
Not going to lie, it was a bit of a surprise when I saw that popping up on your clips list this week. Who is it?
That is Pharrell Williams and Trey Parker of South Park fame doing the song.
Is it really?
Yes. This is a process of my Christmas. This is sort of the song of my Christmas experience, really, because my son has become obsessed with the whole Despicable Me Minions world, as small children are, going to do, and I've sort of actively avoided Pharrell Williams stuff because I don't know, my main understanding of his stuff had been first Blurred Lines, that he produced Blurred Lines, which is basically a date rape song.
Oh God, I didn't know he produced that. That song's terrible.
Yeah, and then he did that song Happy, which was in Despicable Me 2, which was like a massive song whenever that film came out, and I just found it a bit vapid and annoying, and I didn't really pay much attention to it. But after repeated listens, repeat, the ability for children to repeat their interaction with certain media is astonishing, and this song was on the last Despicable Me 3 soundtrack, and I love Trey Parker's delivery. It's brilliant.
I didn't even know he was on it. What part's Trey Parker doing there?
He's the bad guy in Despicable Me 3.
Is he?
Yeah.
No idea. Clearly, my child's older, so she doesn't watch things like 1,000. She does watch things many, many times. She's watched Good Omens, I think, about 5 times, both seasons now, and every single Doctor Who since that Northern lad. She's been through that 3 times as well. That's the one, Christopher Eccleston.
Christopher Ecclescakes. Sorry, I had to get that off my chest.
So, do you not remember Pharrell Williams from NERD?
Oh, I hated that stuff. I just thought he was overhyped rubbish, and I've sort of been broken a bit because I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I had this song. It's not really riff of the week. It's again like your thing, earworm.
Earworm of the week, yeah.
And it was just stuck in my head at 3 o'clock in the morning, but I didn't mind it because I quite like the song. I like Trey Parker. I like a lot of Trey Parker's sort of musical explorations or the South Park guys' musical explorations, because it's that pastiche thing that they do it. They take the piss out of something, but they do it in a really loving way. They're sort of like an ode to the genius of that thing, whilst also going, look how stupid this is.
I think that's my dream way of making a living. That's what we're going for with this podcast. So you've ended up liking it.
How are we doing, Andrew? How are we doing?
We're not doing bad, actually. We've got subscribers.
That's me on YouTube.
I bumped into 50% of our audience at a gig the other week. I said hello to them. So I'm trying to think what it's called. Is it Stockholm Syndrome?
Yeah.
Where you fall in love with your captor? Yeah, that absolutely happens. That happened to me with some of the soundtrack for Train Your Dragon.
Okay,
you're not onto that yet. It's really good. It's really cool because it's written in a way that your child can kind of grow up with it, but then the main characters suddenly get much older and have beards. Stuff. But music for that's actually really good, and the story's really good. But yeah, there's you're experiencing that with the Minions at the moment. So if you've got Minions on fucking everything in your house, here you can pretty much buy Minions COVID kits.
Oh right, yeah. Well, he got really sort of one note about having Minions T-shirt when we were on holiday.
Such a polite way of putting it.
and so we couldn't find anywhere. We couldn't find Minions shirts anyway. We thought we might be able to find them in like knockoff stuff. It's because they're not on. They're not. There's a new. Here's news for you. The music podcast. There's a new film coming out. Despicable Me's 4.
I'm sure you're thrilled.
So when that stuff is, it's actually quite nice to go to the cinema with your kid. But
I always fall asleep.
So the merchandise stuff is about to start again in the next few months. But we couldn't find a Minions T-shirt for Love Nor Money, and then we found Minions pajamas, and so he's basically spent the last week on holiday. Wearing Minions pajamas and running up to any other child that could see it, just going like this. Look at this!
Look how fucking cool I am. I bet that's what he says, isn't it?
Pretty much.
The Minions thing, it got so intense here in the UK that it almost became a meme. They're saying, come the apocalypse, there'll be cockroaches and Minions merchandise. You could buy anything. I think we're at the level now, because it's been a couple of years since the film's come out, that if you go to Ipswich Market, or like any market that's just selling knockoff stuff or stuff that was trendy 2 years ago really cheap, you get plenty of it there.
Yeah. That's what we were looking for, but we couldn't find any of it.
You didn't find any tut markets, any shite markets where you're off on tour.
No, it was nice, too nice.
I think we've given the Minions enough airtime now. So I'm going to go for my riff of the week, which might actually be a riff. I'll leave it up to your judgment, Sam.
I'd say that's a riff. John Williams.
John Williams doing doom metal. That's Chelsea Wolfe, who,
Okay.
I'll be honest, I thought was terribly dreary and dull. Every exposure to Chelsea Wolfe I've had before. Bizarrely, she was supposed to be supporting Deaf Heaven when I saw them at Heaven in London years ago, and she didn't turn up because she got her toe caught in a lift door. I'm just imagining. I was trying to think what would be the weirdest reason not to actually perform at a gig, but who knows. But this album or this stuff she's doing now, I've not researched it well enough to know if it's an album, it's being A-listed on Six Music here in the UK now. And I think it's genuinely actually quite good. She's evolved, or something's changed, and she's not trying to do that weird thing that some people do where they go, hey, I'm like a bit metal. She's not like full on metal. She's not full on shoegaze. It's just actually something quite interesting, and I think it's quite cool.
think I saw her, and I think I saw her early stuff where she was trying to be a bit more edgy, maybe, and it reminded me of. Do you know the band Queen Adrena?
Oh, bloody hell, I fucking hated Queen Adrena.
Oh, but
I know I was in a minority with that.
Well, I don't think they ever got that big, but I really liked... I ended up really liking some of their stuff, particularly... But I really ended up really sort of thinking that a lot of these more dramatic female singers were like a shadow of Katie Jane Garside, the singer of a Queen Adrena, because she's so over the top. But by being so over the top,
that's what annoyed me.
I get that live. I think on records though, I get that. But I think also for me that being so over the top, all these other singers who don't go quite that far just seem to pale in comparison. For me,
I can't say that. I mean, I've started to go back to some music that I really hated when I was writing reviews in the past, because a lot of the things I now probably would really, really like. And I think I can't exactly claim I don't like over-the-top music when I drag you to go and see Melodeath bands at festivals with their Eurovision-style singing.
I think any post-rock band a post-metal band is incredibly, OTT.
So I'd like to publicly apologise to Queen Adrena for the bad review I wrote you in a zine that no one read in 2004.
Yeah, sorry guys. Andrew, sorry.
sorry about that.
Hug me, bring it in.
Right. What was that?
That's how the chorus goes. Hug me, bring it in, and then there's like a 2.5 bar, and then he just goes woo. And it's a bit like having what's that?
It
wrestler?
Really has
Randy.
worked its way into your head like one of those spiders that lays eggs in people's brains when they fall asleep on tropical beaches.
That's it. I think that's pretty fair, accurate description of it.
Speaking as a parent with a child who's older, I'd say you've just got to embrace it.
Yes,
you cannot. You're just going to make yourself miserable if you reject it. I still know more than is decent for a man in his late 40s to know about My Little Pony.
I know that makes you a brony, doesn't it?
Oh no, the brony thing got like suddenly really negative, really toxic, and I can't remember how or why. But I know that Andrew WK, and it certainly wouldn't have been because of him, but Andrew WK became like the patron saint of bronies or something.
He always seemed like pretty cool guy.
Yeah, I genuinely think he is. Right, shall we move on to this week's theme? Go on, what is the theme, Sam? I deliberately asked you just as you were taking a sip of drink.
Drum fills.
Drum fills now.
And it's not even the beat, this is just the bits in between the beats.
Now, quite specifically, not drum solos.
No.
I can't remember if we've done that. Have we done drum solos?
I can't remember. We've done...
I don't know if that... Not something that massively appeals to me as a theme. I don't.
No, I don't like drum. I couldn't tell you 5 drum solos. I haven't listened to one.
You've never heard a drum solo?
I've heard a drum solo, but I've never actively listened to it.
Like never actually elbow on your thigh and holding your chin, going
I really appreciate how he spatters the snare.
Spatters the snare.
I don't know if that's
Here we are. We've got all the technical lingo here.
Sorry, drummers. This is an episode worshipping drummers, but I'm still going to take the piss out of drummers.
Oh, well, see, not all of my fills are from drummers.
I could have gone down that route, but go on, yeah.
Well, let's go for your first choice then, and here it is. So that was Smashing Pumpkins. I think you're bringing me round to Smashing Pumpkins. That song was
Oh,
called...
Jelly Belly. That drum bit in that song is so insanely good. It's so insanely good.
It really is, and for quite a muddy sound they had at that time. I like the aesthetic of that era, Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah,
Incidentally, Sam, they're advertising for a new guitarist if you fancy
I
a new
don't
job.
think I mean, I'm not that. I'm not. If they were going for a bassist, I might say yes, but that you might fall asleep on stage. They just Jimmy Chamberlain's the drummer, and he's jazz trained, and he brings that jazz training a lot to the best of the Smashing Pumpkins stuff, or a lot of the loudest Smashing Pumpkins stuff. Um, and on that song, it just sort of really, really lets loose. And I went through a car journey with a friend of mine, two friends of mine, back from a friend's stag do, where we were just listening to Jimmy Chamberlain. We were just sort of listening out for Jimmy Chamberlain's lead to solo bits, and they're always insane. The man knows how to introduce a guitar solo like no one else in the world, and it's his that. But that particular drum bit is just mind-blowingly good.
It's such a, I don't want to say dirgy in a negative way, but in a really nice way. That era Smashing Pumpkins, the sound is so thick, and two things cut through. And I haven't heard many. I know is Seaver off that album, or is that off Gish?
I think it might be Gish.
Okay, yeah, but the two things cut through on that sample, and it's the high whining guitar, which I like. That always sounds cool, and the snare. That snare work that is absolutely brilliant. It's when I first heard it, I thought, oh, it's just a snare roll leading into the next part, and it's not at all. It's got a whole personality of its own.
Well, it's also like they also do. They're a very unique band, or were at least a very unique band tonally, and the guitars are always, they're one step away from being stoner guitars. And that even in some riffs, if you didn't have Jimmy Chamberlain, if you had another drummer on some of those riffs, you'd end up with a stoner band, with a guy singing in a really nasal whine. And actually, I know what you mean. The sound is muddy. At the same time, I think there's an intentionality to it.
It's thick. I don't think it's muddy, because muddy is... definition of muddy sound for me is where you can hear there's instruments fighting to get out that are being subdued by other parts of the mix, and that's not the case. It all contributes towards quite a not centralized, but a good aesthetic, a good thick sound.
For the longest time, I thought that there was no bass on any of their records, but it's just so tuned into the guitars that it's unless it's sort of really forefront, you don't really notice it.
I noticed the bassist isn't in the band anymore. I think they started off as such a gang band, and I always really liked the idea that bands start as gangs. A good band should be up for a scrap almost to defend themselves. They should be like, what a gang. I don't know how else to put it, but Smashing Pumpkins started that way, and then they sort of seemed to really fall apart really quite quickly, because the bassist called Darcy, or was that?
Yeah.
And then there was a guitarist who looked like, his ancestors were Japanese,
James Iha.
Neither of those two appeared to be in the band. I think the keyboard player died. Drummer got sacked at that time, I think, because he was allegedly the one who supplied the keyboard player with the heroin or something. And I saw a picture of the band because they're advertising for a guitarist, and I recognised the Chief Bellend, who hasn't changed much. I can't remember his name.
Oh no, the band is the most Smashing Pumpkins it's been in years. There was a point where it was just Billy Corgan, the main guy, the main bellend.
Primary bellend.
And then I think Jimmy Chamberlain came back, and then and then they reunited with James Iha. and I think they invited Darcy to come back, but she said no. I think there's like proper bad blood between those two.
Or is it just people have to spend that much time in a bus together? Probably do end up quite disliking each other.
Yeah, and maybe as a middle-aged woman, she's not that interested in spending time around teenage boys, frankly, as grown-up men are.
I was thinking of either the audience or her bandmates, because being in a successful rock band is known to retard the emotional development of men in quite a terrible way.
I think just listening to rock or any music probably does that.
No, I always stick by that study that came out many years ago. I think you told me about how if you look at intellectuals and people with PhDs and the real high thinkers of the world, a high majority of them are into metal.
Oh no, it was apparently there was some correlation between liking heavy metal and doing well at school or something like that. But
oh god, no, that didn't. Maybe that's why I didn't like.
I can't remember what.
Maybe if I had a like,
I can't remember the still. I'm much more cynical about these things nowadays. I've actually gone through the academic process.
I do like the idea that if I'd been into black metal, I might have got some GCSEs.
Frankly, being a teenage metalhead doesn't set you up for success, as I am proof of that. I'll be right back.
Oh, Sam's got his shopping is being delivered from whatever the Finnish equivalent of Ocado or Sainsbury's or Tesco's or Morrison's or Asda, or I'm not going to list all the various shopping things. And I'm hoping he's going to carry the plastic bags past the camera in a family fortune style. He turned down my request to set up a conveyor belt so I could guess what all the things were. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see a fascinating shot of Samuel's bookcase. It's a bit blurry during the recording, but I know it comes through in terrifyingly sharp 4K. Oh, look, okay, what have we got first, Sam?
I just got to put the frozen pizza in the freezer.
Oh, right, it's going to show us the pizza. I want to see pizza. Oh, that's just a plastic bag. I'm trying to decide whether I'll edit this bit out or not. I won't. I might use some of my trail mix though. So if you're listening to this on headphones, this is going to be a bit ASMR. I've mixed some sunflower seeds with some pumpkin seeds. There's a few blanched peanuts in there and a few goji berries. Here we go. Actually, that's just unpleasant to hear, isn't it? Oh, and you must have put the pizza away by now.
Hello.
Oh, you're back.
Hi, sorry. What happened there?
I ate some trail mix. So I need a sip of Barocca now.
At what point?
I thought you were going to show us all your shopping.
At what point does Barocca become like Sunny Delight and you turn orange?
Well, it makes you piss orange, like super quickly.
But you don't turn orange yourself.
I did turn orange for a little while, and my sister.
Isn't that jaundice?
Do you know? I can't be able to divulge this on the podcast, but if you've heard this podcast before, it won't be much of a surprise. We got new towels, right? I splashed out, and I bought me, my wife, and my daughter new towels, like really nice towels. And we'd had them a little while, and I had little hedgehogs on mine. It was orange on one side and sort of light grey the other, little hedgehogs. And I got out of the shower one day, and I went to wipe my face. I know you'd think hedgehog's soft, clearly the right thing to be rubbing against your cods when you're drying yourself off. But I got out of the shower one day and I picked up my towel and I looked, and honest to God, I thought someone's wiped their arse on my towel. Now, I say someone, there's only 3 of us living. And you might think...
might spite you that much to do that to you?
Well, the cat probably. But this might sound like a strange thing for me to be concerned about. Sam and I were staying in a hostel in Antwerp once on the way to while we were a punk rock festival nearby.
Brack Rock. Shout out to Brack Rock. Great festival.
Brack Rock. I'd quite like to go back actually, but
I'd go back this year.
Oh, right. Well, let's talk about that later because I really would. And Sam got out of the shower, grabbed a towel, and I can't remember if you'd already dried yourself off and you'd walked through to the little kitchenette bit, and I pointed out it had shit smeared down it, or whether you spotted it as soon as you picked it up.
Oh, I've blanked this out. What I do remember about, I've thank you, Andrew. I've forgot about that. I do also remember that it was impossible to find decent-sized towels, any other decent-sized towel in that place.
Shit towel or nothing.
Which is not good. It's not a good start to a holiday. That made me. I think that was one of the last times I used Airbnb, and it sort of put me off.
It was pretty rank. So anyway, yeah, my towel. I thought, no, it's happening again. I thought, well, it can't be a random kind of Flemish hostel dweller that's done this.
Hostel dweller. Hostile dweller.
Hostile. Wiped his bum or her bum or its bum on my towel, but I was like, no. Yeah. So I used a different towel, put it through the wash, and when I went to use the towel again, it was fine. But then the next time, it was just all this brownness and orangey brownness all over one particular bit of it again. And I was like, what is going on? I was thinking, I wash myself thoroughly in the shower. I'm not a derelict human being. I like to consider myself quite clean. And it took a while to figure out. But what was happening was my sister had started doing body shop parties, like the pyramid scheme type thing where you get your friends around. And she gave me a free sample of this vitamin C orange moisturizer, which was really nice. But it was quite orange, and for a while I was like, wow, my skin has such a healthy Oompa Loompa vibe to it.
I think like a bit Donald Trumpy.
It was a bit Donald Trumpy, yeah, and my hair is real, and it doesn't do that waving thing when it blows in the wind as much as Donald Trump's. But yeah, it turns out I stopped using the moisturizer, and it stopped looking like somebody had wiped their arse on my towel. Which isn't the most juiced of this episode of the podcast, but I think it is a little side salad on our journey through drum fills, clearly.
A side salad, a side snare to the main...
A side smear, a side shit smear to the main theme. Right, we ought to have one of my songs, because again, we're halfway through the podcast, and we're only one track in. So I'll just play it and then see if you know what it is, actually. Do you know this bit so far? Now, I really don't know if you'll know who that is or not.
Is that the Russells?
The Ruttles, it is indeed the Ruttles. That's the Beatles, and Here Comes the Sun. No, it's not. Oh, whatever the song before it was, going to Mean Mr. Mustard. And I chose it because that's a drum fill not played by a drummer.
Oh.
That's played, it's one of the many bits
by Ringo Starr.
It's not played by Ringo Starr. It was played by Paul McCartney.
Oh,
who played a bunch of the drum bits on Abbey Road, including the drum solo on there. And I chose it because I don't think it's particularly spectacular, but that B-side to Abbey Road is such a patchwork quilt of little unfinished bits of nonsense that transitioning between the two could have been done with something really grand. But I really like how it's just quite workaday. It's just dun 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 dun. There you go. That's all you need. And then we're on to John Lennon, coked up, smacked up John Lennon singing about fuck knows what. Have you seen Get Back?
I've not seen the full 4 hours of it. I've seen a little bit. I love I think the most remarkable thing about that is how quickly they, when they work together, you just sort of see these two minds just sort of, or these sort of minds just sort of reading each other and how to navigate. What's the big song from that last album? Get Back itself, isn't it?
No, Get Back is. I had to speak to someone who really understands the Beatles, because the timeline I found really confusing. But Get Back kind of covers Abbey Road and Let It Be.
Oh, okay.
Let It Be was the whole point of it, was they were going to make a film of them making Let It Be, but they wanted to play it completely live. They were going to go somewhere and do a performance in an amphitheater or somewhere like that, and that would be the album. They soon realized they couldn't really do that. They kind of ran out of time and ended up with tons of footage. So Abbey Road kind of got glued together from bits and bobs, as it were. But no, Get Back. But yeah, if anyone who's listening to this hasn't seen Get Back, the song Get Back, Paul McCartney just sort of shits it out. I've only seen the first episode of the Get Back thing, a little bit of the second, because it's a lot. But he does just sort of go, just like rattling around on a bass, playing like Lemmy, actually, on bass.
Oh, he's an amazing bass player.
It's like, there you go, there's a song.
I mean, that's the most remarkable moment about what I saw of it anyway, which makes me think that I don't need to watch the rest of it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's I didn't know that about that Paul McCartney. They sort of got in on Ringo's act, but I think a well-chosen low-key drum fill is a masterful thing. Rather, it doesn't have to be Jimmy Chamberlain all the time. It doesn't have to be over the top. It can be just a single snare beat in the right place, and it just sets up the rest. The next thing that happens, and that's the purpose of the drum fill, that's the purpose of some drum fills, is to sort of just introduce a new element to get your. It's like when they fire a cannon shot to get your ears ready for something else, to hit really loud noises. Your ears become attuned and they sort of get a bit more guarded. It's a bit like that. It sort of just introduces a different element, and if it does it in the right way, your brain just goes, oh, and it starts listening again.
It's a little bit of ear candy. We do it a lot with electronica. Well, in fact, electronica is pretty much just about that kind of thing. But it's actually one of the things that I find quite lacking in a lot of, especially death metal and black metal, is the drums are so full on that it completely spoils it. And I mean, sometimes it has to be, especially with black metal, when they're just doing that sort of sheeny, they play those chords with their hands and like stretching an octave and a half. Which is impossible, I guess. But I want to choose that just as to show the sort of the mortar between two songs.
No, I think, and we'll talk about the extreme metal stuff later. But I agree. It sort of becomes like but I think it's a different attitude to the drums. It becomes sort of about a rolling aspect to the drums, and that's very much rather than like. There's no. I mean, like, so what's it called? We'll talk about extreme metal later.
As we're jumping around, which you're purposefully not, to go back to the Pharrell Williams,
Pharrell Williams,
Fecklund Williams,
Fecklund Williams, Feckless Williams.
Fecund is one of those words that sounds rude, but isn't. Fecund just means like loads of stuff growing. When you first told me that, I thought either Sam has had that played so many times he's got Stockholm syndrome, or I thought you'd latched onto the very funkadelic kind of bass line in it.
Oh,
the synthy bit.
I genuinely like that song. I think I like it. I notice it much more, and I like it much more because I've been exposed to it so many times, but I genuinely think it's a good song.
Okay, speaking of exposing, let's have this. I want that again. So I want that little bit again. It's so brief.
That's the point. That's it.
Oh, you talked over it. I want it again. It's a lovely, lovely, lovely little fill. It's like he just shoves in a few extra beats just in the nick of time.
Oh, it's just, I mean,
Well, who is it? We need to say who it is. Sorry, Sam. Who is that?
That's the Michael Jacksons. But who was the drummer on that track? Let's find who the drummer on that track. It's called "Baby Be Mine." The writer was Rob Temperton. Rob Temperton, known for Thriller, Off the Wall, Rock With You.
Jeff Porcaro was the name of the drummer.
What else has Jeff Porcaro been on then?
He was in Toto.
Really?
Am I pulling this off? I just used ChatGPT.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Hey, I love it when
wrong.
it's wrong. Hey, I'm just going to tell it it's wrong. See what it says. You're wrong. I apologise. Please let me correct that. Tell Dr. Sam. Oh no, he's just said, yeah, I'm wrong. Nugdu Chancellor.
Yeah.
Is that who you've
Leon Ndugu Chancellor.
Ndugu Nugdu.
If
he was from Suffolk, it would be like Frank. It'd still be spelt that way, but it'd just be like Frank or something.
He's got a hell of a career. He was like a jazz sideman with people like Herbie Hancock and recorded with Miles Davis, Freddie Hubbard, and Bobby Hutcherson. He was also the drummer on Billie Jean, and he also worked with Stanley Clarke, John Lee Hooker. Stanley Clarke's a fusion drummer, fusion bassist, rather.
Yeah, I was going to say bass. I can picture him because he was always on the back of the packet when I used to buy Rotosound bass strings as a teenager. That's literally just how I know his name.
Yeah. I can't stand his music, but he is very technically impressive.
Looks good on a string packet.
Yeah, it's sort of you'd hate him. It's sort of jazz end of Primus slap dickery.
Have you seen slap guitar?
Yes, yeah.
There's a guy he plays like an 8-string guitar, and I read about him in a magazine. Going, wow, this all looks really cool. And I was thinking the slap might on a guitar might make it sound like gent or something. And I watched some of it, and it's one of the things that I very quickly thought, not for me.
Yeah. So yeah, I just love it's like a pre-thought of like, oh, how should I start this? I'm going to start, and then and it's just going to fall down the stairs. And that's
it's so lovely.
It's such a nice. I like that description. I got that from my friend Lawrence. Description of the drummer sounding like he's falling down the stairs, but it is that just like. Brr.
It's like he's getting paid. Oh, hang on! I'm getting paid by the stick. Each time the stick hits the skin, I'm getting paid $1. Yeah. So I'm just going to shove a few extra in there.
It's so tight and so casual at the same time.
Yeah, the session lineup that Jackson had around that time, the lineup of session players it's just wild, absolutely unbelievable. Right, we ought to move on to the next track. There's certain bands that are getting chosen more than other bands or acts, and Michael Jackson is one that it's starting to pop up. It's popped up a few times. If I could be asked, I'd do some analysis, but I can't be fucked.
Oh, I grew up listening to Michael Jackson, and I'm also listening to a podcast about Michael Jackson and his life and career, and his, can we understand Michael Jackson through his, the accusations around Michael Jackson. It's called Think Twice, and it's about, it's the history and can we understand Michael Jackson through and his actions, or the allegations around him through his biography. And they went and did shitloads of interviews. So it's really interesting.
I always kind of assumed that, I mentioned before that Thriller was such a big album. You could buy it in newsagents and places that didn't sell any other records. Like everybody, it's like vapes now in the UK. You can buy vapes in hairdressers. They're literally everywhere. And it was the same with Michael Jackson. But even as a child, I was always under the assumption that he wasn't really controlling the music at all. I always very much got the impression that he just turned up and was shoved in front of a microphone and told what to sing. And I'm increasingly learning that's not really the case,
No,
which is really, really surprising to me.
Well, what I'm finding is that he sort of needed, like any person, he needed Quincy Jones to sort of really sort of fulfill and round off his ideas. His best, that's why you got Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad. And it was, what is it? Thriller became the best-selling album of all time, with 32 million copies sold worldwide in a year.
In a year.
And the album has 8 tracks, and 7 of them became singles.
It's wild. Just the stats alone around Michael Jackson are absolutely incredible.
9 tracks, but 9 tracks and 7 of them. But he wrote. He's credited with writing "Beat It" and "Billie Jean" and "Want to Be Starting Something" and the duet with what's he called? What's that awful bastard called? From the Beatles.
Paul McCartney, is that on that album?
Yeah.
Oh, Ebony and Ivory.
No.
Ivory?
No. It's "The Girl Is Mine" is the first duet together.
Bloody hell! My brain's entirely filtered old Brian McCarthy out of that.
And then on Bad, there are 2 songs written by other people.
But I'm fascinated by this because going back to the Beatles for a second, there allegedly is like maybe 1 or 2 credited musicians on Beatles records, and yet there's a list of about 30 or 40 people who definitely did play on them but are just never credited. And things have almost gone the other way now. You've got Beyonce releasing songs and you look at who wrote them and there'll be like 20 people on the writing staff for a single Beyonce song.
But this is just, you think about the process of okay, you take your band and these are end times, and Rocky probably writes most of the music to begin with, but the way it's played, the way everybody plays, the way even if he directs it, you are still writing it as you play it, because you cannot if you change one aspect, one person within that band, the whole sound changes.
Mm.
And and I think this is one of the things that a lot of this is one of the reasons I think, like, for me, a lot of Laura Jane Grace's more recent stuff doesn't click as hard. Is partly because it doesn't have the same dynamics within the music as when she's playing particularly with sort of the people around Against Me.
It's mentioned in. Have you seen Bohemian Rhapsody?
Yes. Yeah.
So in that, Freddie Mercury says to the band when they reunite, "I had a band and they all did exactly what I told them, and that was the problem."
Yeah,
I was thinking, that's it. It's also what's happened with members of Pink Floyd in more recent years. They release these albums that, well, I'm certainly not a fan of them. That's because they've got no one saying no. Not going saying, "Do you think that might be a bit sketch? That might be a bit crap."
And one of the things about amazing studio musicians is not that they are playing like a computer. It is that they are doing something genius with the thing that's been given to them. That's why
really fast as well, in like no time at all. It's a whole nother topic. The next song I chose by pure coincidence because I also think the very beginning of it is just a joy. So that was the Clashers with Train in Vain. I quite like the Clash. I know I'm 40 years late, but just is that Top of Hedon on that one?
Yeah.
It's the little slip, the little slide. Is it like a? I'm gonna have to listen to it again. Is it like a hi hat lift?
Yeah.
Yeah, just a hi hat lift. Just makes that so much more intriguing, so much more interesting. It makes it so much more like something I want to hear the next part of. And just the whole intro to that song is just. I think it sounds to me like a band who's actually a bit more relaxed in the studio and isn't under quite as much pressure just to thrash stuff out. They're going, actually, let's make the beginning of this song interesting. I know nothing about the Clash.
When did you? I mean, it surprises me, Andrew, because you spent most of the time on this podcast dismissing the Clash.
No, I've never
listened to them.
I've never. No, it's true. I haven't listened to a Clash album. I still haven't the whole way through. Never dismissed them. I've just not heard them enough. But stuff.
London Calling was when they it was when they stopped trying to prove themselves and just were themselves, going, this is what we do and this is what we're interested in. Whereas I think the first album was very much just prove ourselves. We need to prove ourselves, and that's very much that early punk statement of proof. And then the second album is much more. There is much more songwriting and control in it. But they're still a bit nervous about going beyond that punk spectrum. And then the third album, which is London Calling, they just go, oh, wow, we don't care about punk anymore. Fuck this. If people don't like this, fuck them.
How big were they at the time? Because had they done Shea Stadium? Whereabouts is that in the Clash timeline?
Where's Shea Stadium? I don't know that one. I know it was the Clash live album. I've never listened. No, that was afterwards.
It was afterwards, because that's when they were suddenly. I mean, you don't play Shea Stadium without being absolutely massive. Is there an album of it?
Yeah. There's an album of it. Wasn't that? I thought that was in support of the Who.
Oh, I don't know. I'm going on a half remembered memory of seeing the Clash running on stage with their mop tops and the Vox AC30s and the suits.
Yeah, I've never listened to it because I never expect a Clash live album to sound good.
I am gonna listen to a Clash album one day because I like what I've heard.
Go hardcore and just go for Sandinista.
Just go for disc 4 Sandinista.
If you can get through that, my son, then you'll be a man.
That'd be like that. That's the musical equivalent of what was it Mark Twain said? When you wake up in the morning, always eat a frog, because the rest of the day will be brilliant. So yeah, start with track 4 of Sandinista, side 4. Right, I'm going to move on to your next choice, and I was genuinely surprised by this.
Then I read somehow it's in. Now I'm always depressed, and now I can't sleep from years of apathy. All because I read a little Noam Chomsky. I'm eating vegetation because of fast food nation. I'm wearing comfortable shoes because of globalization. I'm watching Michael Moore expose the awful truth. I'm listening to Public Enemy and Reagan Youth. I see no world peace because of zealous armed forces. I eat no breath mints because I'm from the hoofed horses.
From the hoofed horses. Go on, Sam, who was that?
That was the NoFXs. And that was the Franco Un-American, which is one of my favourite songs by them. And,
it is peak pop NoFX, isn't it?
It's peak pop NoFX. It's also probably peak popularity.
Yeah.
And this was early 2000s, and it was the album War and Errors, and it was against George Bush and all that. Oh, the glory days of George Bush. It seems so nice. Nice now. From a Western perspective, at least. It is more. I mean, Smelly is a great drummer, but it is more about the style of drumming that he's doing, and the fills, the use of the snare, and the use of the snare in like Californian punk rock. And I really think it is that skater punk rock scene that the NoFX were part of, and Fat Wreck sort of defined in many ways. And it's just the fluidity of the snare rolls by these drummers. Because I could have chosen like not Mike Dern, Trey Cool as well, or you could choose like pretty much any Fat Wreck band, a lot of Epitaph bands from the era, and it's just about that drummer, and they got a real pushing energy, but the fluency of the snare rolls is incredible. It really pushes the music, and I love it.
I think I always liked about Smelly's drumming in particular is it sounds slightly behind the beat, but like almost imperceptibly. But it gives it such an interesting sound. I'm just looking at the lineup for Brack Rock in 2024. It's a classic Brack Rock lineup because there's bands that I would happily go and see at a festival, but I probably wouldn't make the effort to see in person. So Alkaline Trio, I'd go see at a festival. H2O, Less Than Jake, I've seen a bunch of times at Reading Festival and whatever. Descendants, I must listen to more Descendants. I swear I'm missing out on something. Strung Out, again, really loved some of the Strung Out stuff that came up on some of the Fat Wreck compilations. Wilhelm Scream, so Jim, I'll make Jim's nephew. Mustard Plug, a name I know but can't remember why. The Dwarves, novelty. I don't know why people like them. The Queers, yeah, I'd go see the Queers. Toasters, quite like Toasters, quite like a bit of that sort of ska. I realised I am now just reading band names.
What was it? It is. I mean, it sort of does what it says on the tin. It is a sort of a nostalgia fest, and very much, frankly, and I love it. But it is a nostalgia fest, and they haven't updated the lineup yet. But the Queers are playing as well, and I there's some Queers albums that are just brilliant. Really, really love some of their stuff. They're more Beach Boysy stuff. But yeah, I mean, also we would have seen the Descendants last time, but I think we were too old, tired, and got the train back, and went, yeah, let's go and sit in our hotel room with a beer.
So, listeners, we used to cycle to Brack Rock. We used to start in Ipswich, get the train to Harwich, Hooker Holland, then cycle to Antwerp. So that was when you lived in London. I still live in Ipswich. But I think you might have a bit more of a challenge cycling to Brack Rock now, because it'd be, 1,000 miles or something?
Yeah, that might be a challenge. I'd give it a go, then.
You could drink as much beer and eat as many frites as you wanted to once you got there.
I'll fly my bike to Amsterdam and cycle from there, put on another 80k or something.
Do they allow you to just bungee your bike to the wing of a plane?
We'll find
just
out.
Wheel it on, just wheel it onto the plane. The passenger, just have it apologise to the person next to you.
Let's find out, Andrew. Let's find out.
Right. So I wanted to go for the fills that aren't a solo but are a feature of the song. So I chose this. Is it too strong to say? If you're listening to this podcast and you don't know what that is, then you should probably leave.
Yes.
That's too strong. Okay, fair enough. Who was it, Sam?
Pink Floyd?
Oh, no. Well, really? Are you're not fucking around?
I recognise the drum sound in a way, but I don't know.
Oh, it's not the drum sound, it's the guitar. Nobody plays guitar like that person. I am genuinely
Santana?
surprised. Oh, Sam.
For listeners rather than watchers, Andrew's lost his stiffy.
It's Jimi Hendrix.
I don't really care about Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, what? I'm not obsessed, but I just, as somebody who we now accept as being great, who at the time must have sounded like he'd come from outer space. God, really? So I love it's the timing of the flange and the phase or whatever it is. It just
It's very
speeds up.
nicely done.
It's very
Yeah.
cool. But really, you're not fussed about Jimi Hendrix.
No. I like some of his stuff. I think his version of All Along the Watchtower, that's astonishing. But I don't know. Yeah, it's just someone I've never really got the genius of. I appreciate some stuff, but I don't know. It just doesn't speak to me that much.
I think if he had lived, he would have made his best stuff 10 years after when he died. I think that's when it would have got interesting. Once he'd kind of, I dare say, got out of guitar music. It's certainly not all high quality stuff. I think, controversial opinion, he might be like the Doors for me, as in makes a brilliant best of. But I certainly don't adore all the output. But I'm almost genuinely worried that people listening to this who see me in the street might now attack me, because he has such a shield of reverence around him.
Well, I think that's what I react against. That's what I'm going. Not allowed. You're not allowed to discover him by yourself. You have to be. You're sort of the reputation precedes the man.
Yeah,
and precedes the music. So you hear about Jimi Hendrix before you hear Jimi Hendrix, and for me, that just sort of doesn't allow me to find the genius within it. That tells me that it's genius. It's like reading a review and the review just says, "Oh, this is fucking great," and you go, "But what's great about it?" You tell me a bit more. Also. I was listening to an interview with George Clinton from Parliament, who said, "Oh yeah, everybody knew, in the black music community, around where Jimi Hendrix was, they all knew him beforehand." He goes, "Oh yeah, they were just sort of, it wasn't that beyond. He just took it to a white audience who had never seen anything like that before."
That's really, really fucking interesting to me, because everyone knows that he was a session musician for Little Richard and did a bunch of stuff. But the idea that there was other musicians being so freeform in the way they played the guitar, thinking about it now, of course there fucking was. You got Robert Johnson in the 1930s doing that freeform, not learned technically, but fully expressing himself through a guitar. Hendrix is 30, 40 years later. Of course there'll be a ton of people in the middle. I'm a fucking idiot. But I know what you mean about the reputation preceding, and I think that's another case of punk rock ruined my life. If somebody tells me, especially a nation or like a whole group of people tell me something's brilliant, my initial reaction is not to want to listen to it.
Oh yeah, and going back, going full circle in a way. My first exposure to Pharrell Williams was a Guardian article calling him a genius. At which point I just went, "Oh, fuck off."
That's what not for me then.
Yeah. But I can't stand when music journalism tells me not what they don't spend any time on actually description of the music, and they spend all their time on telling me that it was brilliant or genius or fucking. Don't tell me this. Let me make up my own evaluation of it. Some of my sort of stuff I've said, falls far short of that. But I'm not being paid to do this shit yet.
Not at all. It's an interesting thing as an exercise in. I can't even remember why I started. I'm making my way through the Pitchfork 50 albums, and it's partly because I don't like sites like Pitchfork, or they used to be Drowned in Sound, or I don't like scenester type hipster things, or magazines like The Wire. I don't like any self-congratulatory tastemakers. In fact, phrases like tastemaker make me almost physically feel sick. But I thought, right, am I just being a dick? Is punk rock just keeping me away from some really good music? So, listeners, if you go to the new website, beatmotel.com, I am working my way through the top 50. And it's been really strange. I haven't written reviews of things for maybe 10 years. And I'm finding it a real struggle, because if I hear something and I like it, I very much can snap into I like it because, and I try never to do the cliche things like strong songwriting, blah, blah, blah. I always try to say, this is the bit that I personally connected to, and this is what I liked about it, because in line with what you're saying, Sam, that's far more interesting to me when I'm reading a review of something else, because it's not foisting an opinion. It's not saying, if you don't think this is great, you're missing out. And I've discovered some brilliant stuff, some bands so far I absolutely love, and some absolute bollocks. And it's the bollocks I don't like I struggle with more, because I don't think it's within my nature just to say, I can't objectively say this is shit, but I also don't want to write a 500-word review saying, not for me.
Well, I remember one of the last, before I gave up the ghost on writing, over 10 years ago, writing music reviews, and it was a article. Someone had sent me a CD of some sort of hardcore skate punk thing, and I sat there and I just went, "This is so bland. This is so middle of the road. I cannot think of anything to say about it. It's not bad, but it's not." And it's like, I just didn't have an impression of it. It spoke to me not at all, and that was the hardest thing for me. Like, it's fun to write. It's fun to write rude things about people's art. It's also fun to write nice things about people's art, but it's really hard to write to a word count of something that just does not say anything to you whatsoever.
Yeah, I've suffered from that on this Pitchfork list. There's there's one album that was just sort of middle of the road, inoffensive R&B, and I couldn't. There was nothing. I think I might have said, for me, this is like listening to The Colour Beige, and I couldn't even pick out anything to dislike about it, because it wasn't offensively bad. It was just, well, here's some landfill.
Yeah, and exactly. And it's incredibly hard to write beyond that. I find this music boring. What's boring about it? It's competent. There's nothing particularly bad about it. There's nothing that stands out about it, though.
And I don't think music always has to be pushing the envelope. God, I wouldn't like a lot of the metal I do if I genuinely believed that. You can get genre and just do it very well.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying everything has to always be pushing forward. But when I rebuilt the website only a few weeks ago, I've been digging out bits from when we were a paper zine, and I found the review policy. And I was going to put the review policy on the beatmotel.com website, but I've simplified it. And the review policy on the website is, don't send us anything unless it's something we can flog on eBay. Because I don't want to review anything. It ruined listening to music for me for a while, when Beat Motel was a paper zine, and in a week sometimes I get 100 CDs through the door. And I dread listening to music. And I don't want to be in that position again. I'll write about something if it kind of gives me, a particularly strong feeling one way or the other. And the Pitchfork 50 is a sort of an exercise in its own right. But I'm a musician, for fuck's sake. I know that reviews are the lifeblood of everything, but I feel like I've done my time. I've served my time. I've done that enough. Beat Motel used to have hundreds of reviews. Across episodes.
Yeah, I don't really want to go back. I mean, I don't want to go back to reviewing stuff. It's fun, but it's also, I'm finding in other ways it's quite empty, because it's it might be fun to make it into a more academic exercise in my world, but not to just sort of listen to a new album and just go and share my opinion and first few takings of it. Yeah.
Right, we ought to move on to your last song, which is this. Whoa! Who's that?
That was Darkest Hour.
Never heard of 'em.
Payphones and pills.
I fucking love that though. The have you seen the video for it on YouTube?
Oh no, I haven't. No.
Oh, that's exciting! I'll put it in the show notes. Actually, it's that I love that. I like that so much that instantly connects to me. If I was to write a review for that, no, I think. Go on, tell us more, then I'll wrap it on. About it.
So Darkest Hour were a band, or they are a band, and they've been going since the late 90s, and that was from their third album, Hidden Hands of a Sadist Nation, on Victory Records, no doubt, the controversial Victory Records, and they
Controversial.
because the owner has sort of been known to sort of not treat bands particularly nicely.
Who was the owner? Because he was in a band, wasn't he?
I don't know. I can't remember. Tony Brummel, and yeah, it's sort of he's occasionally crop up with different bands and got into like legal proceedings with his bands. And, yeah, it's a bit uncomfortable. But yeah, Hidden Hands of Sadist Nation, sort of hardcore metalcore, but leaning more towards metal than hardcore stuff. The drummer is a guy called Ryan Parrish for that stuff, and it always hit me that Ryan Parrish his drum fills just always sounded completely perfect to me. His drum beats sounded the perfect ones for, like, you couldn't imagine anything else in that position, and his drum fills just sounded so fluid. And this is sort of like, you were talking about earlier, you were talking about modern metal drumming, and some of them, like, this is the difficulty, I think. I think metal drumming, they've lost sort of the one doesn't, like if you're counting a bar 1, 2, 3, 4, the one doesn't hit as hard anymore, and you need these drum fills to actually locate where the start of a riff is sometimes. But it's rolling. It's this black metal sort of rolling. There's no stop. It's like a sea. To me, it's like a sea in a wave. Waves just coming into the shore again and again and again.
I think without that style of drumming, it would sound so erratic. It would sound so difficult to latch onto, and sometimes I like that.
Yeah, and the fluid, I love. It's again like with. I think there's a relationship to that sort of Californian sort of punk rock drumming, where it's all the emphasis on fluidity in the drumming style, rather than say in like a previous drumming style, which would be an emphasis on like in funk. There's not an emphasis on fluidity; it's an emphasis on like a beat. And go full circle again. Pharrell Williams, there's not necessarily that much. There's actually emphasis very much on rhythm, whereas you're right, like the drummer's sort of role is to sort of sort of sand over the jaggedness of the guitars. And this guy does an amazing job, I think.
Absolutely. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I'm going to look up more of Darkest Hour.
I think they've got a new album coming out, the first one in a good few years. But I recommend Hidden Hands of a Sadist Nation and Undoing Ruin. Those are the two best ones in my.
I'll forget that, so I'll WhatsApp you in a little while.
Oh wow!
But there's so much there that appeals to me. I don't know. I would not have listened to. So that's 12 years ago. I would have not listened to something like this. Oh no, it's 2004.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Burst. So many bands like that I just wasn't in the headspace. I hadn't explored enough music. I think I was probably still locked into the skate punk thing. But we are running out of time, so I'm going to play the last choice, which my wife insisted I must play if we're going to do anything with fills. And I resisted it for a little while, and then I tried to find the version from Brian Pern. Did you see Brian Pern? You're laughing. Did you see Brian Pern, the series?
No.
You got no idea what I'm talking about at all. Oh my God. The people behind the Fast Show did a series called...
You told me about it before.
Yeah, I think it was called Brian Pern, Inventor of Musicals. It's so. I think you'll really. No, I'm not going to overhype it. But there's a version of that they talk about this drum fill, and it's got Your Man on it. And if anyone listening hasn't seen Brian Pern, then it's worth just looking up a few clips. It's quite funny. I think even out of context, you'll find it funny without me having to explain it. But I couldn't find a good enough rip, so I'm just going to play the original. And wait, I want to see if you're going to... We're going to stop it just for a minute, because I'm older than you, Sam. I don't know if this will immediately make you like roll your eyes and go, oh, God. Because as soon as I press play there, anyone my age will go, oh, it's this fucking song. Did you get it yet? I only stopped it because it is such a massive thing. Any clues? Should I stop teasing?
Is this the one with the gorilla?
There's your context for being younger. the one with the gorilla.
This makes me want chocolate, this.
Takes a while to get going, doesn't it?
Yeah. I never listened to the actual thing myself.
Oh.
It's
such a meme in its own right.
I was thinking about... I was looking at your choices and my choices, and what I find is quite interesting is that...
can I just say who it was? That's Phil Collins with "In the Air Tonight."
And it smells like it as well. I find it quite interesting that so many of your choices are like I didn't grow up listening to British radio. I grew up listening to CDs in the car, and so many more of my choices are American than yours.
I think you've got the better music taste, to be fair.
No, it's not. I deny that, but it sort of frustrates me in a way that my music taste in a way is a much more of a product of my early music taste is much more of a product of globalization in a way.
I can see where you're coming from, and when we first started Beat Motel, I decided that the songs I choose, they don't have to be songs I like dearly love, because that's going to keep it too constrained, and ultimately we're like, this is episode 56 or 57, and we'd run out of stuff probably. So I've just sort of tried to find things that are almost the first thing that pops into my head. And Phil Collins in the 80s, massive.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, and also that drum fill has become, cultural currency.
I love that phrase, cultural currency.
It's instantly recognizable. I don't know the song. If someone plays the start of that song, I wouldn't know it. I'd know it's Phil. I'll know the sound, and I could make an educated guess. But I could make an educated guess precisely because of an advert. That was advertising Quaker confectionery.
Quaker confectionery. It was Cadbury's, wasn't it? Before they sold out to the
Canadians.
Started taking that fucking palm oil and everything and making it weird frothy chocolate.
And fucking, you don't really want cream cheese in your chocolate, do you?
No, I've tried it. Right. No, it's like Philadelphia or like cream cheese and stuff. There was a chocolate one we tried once, and it was wrong. Just wrong.
Maybe you should spread it on a body part. Maybe it would be better.
And I think it was. I accompanied it with lime pickle, which I think might have been a mistake. Oh, actually, I feel a bit queasy just saying that.
What about try it with some smoked salmon?
Gee, we've never been out for an Indian meal together, have we?
We might have been, but not consciously.
Right. I think we ought to wrap it up there. Sam, it's been wonderful having you back.
I love you, Andrew.
I just want to say thank you to Marv and Jay and Luke who were alternatives. I was going to say they're filling in for Sam, and that's not true at all. They were alternatives for the last few weeks. and those episodes are well worth listening to. But Sam, it is lovely to have you back.
It's lovely to be back.
I might rig up a random, because we've got this long list of potential topics. I might rig up a random topic chooser for next time.
I think so. Do it. That's fun.
Cool. Last thing to say, we're making more of an effort with the socials at the moment, and if I'm honest, I'm using a bit of software to try and pull more clips out of it, because I spend quite a lot of time preparing clips from this advert. From each episode. So I'm trying something else. So that being said, I'm going to say goodbye. Do you want to say goodbye?
You are being experimented on, either by your own government or by another government, and by Andrew.
And by me.